Hello. Thank you for joining our session with the title Expanding to Japan, How to Make It in the World's Third Largest Market. I'm Reiko Sadamoto from the Embassy of Japan in Singapore, which has assisted deepening the business relationship between Japan and Singapore in financial fields. This session is mainly for overseas fintech startups, which will develop or expand their businesses in Japan. Today, we will cover the very basic information about the Japanese fintech ecosystem, regulatory landscape, and what foreign fintech firms to be aware of when expanding in Japan, and legal procedure and tax requirements when starting businesses in Japan. After the presentation, we will also have a live Q&A session in the special chat room. Today, we will have three experts. Mr. Yuki Kishi, Managing Director of FinTech Association of Japan. Mr. Shota Matsuzawa, Deputy Director of FinTech Innovation Office, Japan Financial Services Agency. And Ms. Kiewai Khoo, Director of Business Development and PR, Japan External Trade Organization in Singapore. Okay, now we would like to move on to the first presentation. The first presentation is about an overview of fintech ecosystem in Japan, presented by the Mr. Kishi, Yuki Kishi, Managing Director of FinTech Association Japan. Kishi-san, could you please start?
Thank you very much for the introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Yuki Kishi. I'm the Managing Director at the FinTech Association Japan. In the coming 10 minutes, I'm going to explain the overview of FinTech ecosystem in Japan, so that after this 10 minutes, you have a better understanding of where the Japan market is. Once again, I'm Yuki. I'm currently doing a Managing Director at the FinTech Association Japan. But at the same time, I have another hat at Plug and Play Japan, supporting fintech startups. And what we do is we also connect startups, corporates, as well as the venture capital in one stop to foster the innovation as well as to accelerate their innovation activities. And through the Plug and Play Japan as well as FinTech Association Japan, we have supported many international non-Japanese fintech startups, so that I should be able to present you and give you more insights of what I've seen in the past 3 years. So a quick overview by the size of Japan itself. From left to right, the population, GDP by the city, as well as the number of Fortune Global 500 cities, 500 companies by city. As you can see, Japan, as well as Tokyo itself, is one of the top in the league tables. But for example, population is by 2017 with the number one. GDP by the city is a little bit outdated, but we believe that we're still one of the top in the league table, as well as a number of Fortune Global 500 companies. So that with this slide, I'd like to show you that the market size itself is still very strong in Japan. If we take out the fintech market itself, this is some of the market size that I got from a Yano research institution. In Japan, the word fintech has started to appear around 2014, and since then we've seen a steady as well as rapid growth of this fintech ecosystem. And the research itself, the actual statistic was still until 2019, and from 2020 onwards, it is expected. But with this high growth rate, we kind of believe that the market size is projected to go somewhere around the $12 billion US dollars in 2022. And this, which means that this is a CAGR of 51% from 2017 to 2022. And at the same time, we also see good number of investments flowing to the fintech ecosystem, and the rate of the investment has actually surpassed the rate of the one in APAC, US, and EU. So I think this is showing that the market is has been growing and also is expected to grow in the coming years as well. So from the investment side, this is the amount of investments by venture capitals in Japan on 2019 as well as in 2022 on 2020. So 2019, fintech itself was on fourth on the table, and 2020, fintech has actually improved the league table from fourth to third in the ranking table. And as you may know, 2020 was severely hit by COVID-19, not throughout the world, but of course Japan was also severely hit. But so meaning that the overall venture capital investment in Japan has actually shrank, but the fintech investment has actually improved from 511 million US dollar to 526 US dollars. So I think the fintech is still one of the strongest categories and also strongest growth in Japan venture capital investment as well. And what's driving the scene is, of course, venture capital and CVC, which is a corporate venture capital. But recently, we've seen another trend that international venture capital is sweeping into the Japanese market. And for example, one of the headlines that I got is Kiewai Capital, which is a top-tier US venture capital firm, is now thinking to come to the Japanese market and invest in the Japan fintech startups as well. And this is some of the hot topics in Japan fintech scenes that I've seen for the past 1 year or so. Some of the keywords are pretty similar to what's happening outside Japan, like eKYC, ESG finance, SDGs, buy now, pay laters, digital banking. But of course, in Japan, remote work, cashless societies is also some of the keywords more specific to the Japan market itself. And through Plug and Play Japan, we have supported many startups, roughly about 100 startups for the past 3 years. And of those 100 startups, 60% are actually international, non-Japanese startups. And so this is showing the breakdown of those startups. And if you look at on the right-hand side, of those 60% international startups, 26 actually coming from United States, 5 from Singapore, 5 France, 4 UK, Canada. But of course, after this, I have many more list of startups. So I think in this slide is showing that it's pretty surprised to see that many international startups want to come to the Japanese market. And of course, if you look at the bottom, these are some of the logos that I have shown. For example, Solaris Bank, which is a German banking and service company, Duco, which is a UK data reconciliation company. Moxtra is more like non-face-to-face communication channel. Beacon is offering a financial infrastructure. So I think we kind of see many varieties of fintech startups, and if you look at the one on the right hand side of the table with the categories, it shows that 26 is coming from the blockchain. Of course, back in 2018, the word blockchain has been a little buzz at the time, so that's why the number have actually improved. But we still see many blockchain applications in Japan coming in. And of course, cybersecurities, capital market, operation, efficiency, technology, and RegTech. So if you're for those audiences watching outside, watching from wherever countries you're from, if your application is one of these or one of these, I think you have good opportunities in Japan as well. And of course, the key success is to find a good local partners. So this is a screenshot that I got from FinTech Association Japan. And of course, if you look at on the left-hand side, you have a traditional financial institutions, regional banks, and payments. But if you look at in the middle, these are the companies that are non-FIs but have got strong interest into the fintech market, or like thinking to come into the financial business as well. So like from your perspective, of course, you can work with the traditional financial institutions or these telecommunications or non-FIs. And of course, at the same time, you have a system integrator, which is in a way, they're the IT backbone of the IT infrastructure for these financial institutions. So you can work with Hitachi, NEC, Toshiba, NRI, and NTT Data, and they will be in a way supporting your expansion in Japan as well. So you have multiple channels of working in Japan. Of course, other tips when coming to Japanese market entry is you have to find a local talent as well, especially finding the first person, which is country manager, will be a crucial because in Japan it's kind of hard to find a bilingual talent, as well as you have to find someone with a good understanding of Japanese financial market landscape, as well as who can handle the headquarter management. So finding these local talent is a very crucial first step. But of course, and secondly, you have to build a good relationship with the regulators. The Matsuzawa-san will be Matsuzawa-san from FSA will be speaking after this. So from your perspective, for those who need to speak to regulators, I think he will be a good point of contact going forward. And of course, on the third but not least, you have to understand the business culture in Japan. The Japanese business culture is very different to those outside Japan, let's say UK, US, or Singapore, and any other countries. So you have to have a good expectation, right expectation for you to have, for you to conduct a business in Japan. And lastly, a bit of FinTech Association Japan. We established ourselves in 2015. We are on the 7th term starting from this November. We have many startups as well as many financial institutions and non-FIs. And what we do is we are trying to do business matching. We kind of support your service as well as corporate service, trying to match it together so that you guys can foster the innovations. We have many sub-committees like compliance, lending, insurance, cashless, RegTech, capital markets, cybersecurities. And we did have this working group so that we what we're trying to do is we're trying to foster this fintech ecosystem in Japan, and also we also have a strong government relations. So through this workshop, we are doing in a way lobbying activities as well. So if you're interested in coming to the Japan market, I think we are a good first point of contact. So find us in the Facebook, whatever social media you have. Of course, you can reach out to me. You can find my name, Yuki Kishi, on the LinkedIn, so that we can have a further conversation. Thank you very much for your time today. Hope to speak to you soon after this session.
Thank you very much for the presentation with Mr. Yuki Kishi. Okay, so now we would like to move on to the second presentation. The second presentation is about the regulatory landscape of Japan from the Mr. Shota Matsuzawa, Deputy Director of FinTech and Innovation Office in Japan Financial Services Agency. Shota-san, could you please start your presentation?
Thank you for the introduction, Sadamoto-san. My name is Shota Matsuzawa, Deputy Director of FSA FinTech and Innovation Office. Today, I would like to talk about the regulatory landscape of Japan and also recent initiative of FSA. On this slide, I'd like to talk about the major financial regulations in Japan. This is very simplified explanation. So if you need more detail, you please contact our support desk. And left-hand side top, type 1 financial instrument. If you buy or sell or the brokerage of the equity or derivative, then you need this license. And also, like when you the exchange the crypto and then you do the business derivative of the crypto, and you need this license. So we have the 300 license holder in Japan, and such as the Nomura Securities or Daiwa Securities, Goldman Sachs, and from the crypto, the Bitfire, and also some of the robo-advisory startups have this license. And next one is a type 2 financial instrument. And this is a solicitation and the self of the fund interest, which means like a formed fund and the raised fund, and you need this license. So we have the 1,200 companies have this license, and such as the Nomura Asset Management. Also, like some of the real estate company developer has this license, so such as the Mitsui Fudosan. And also some of the startup, the crowdfunding, the company, they need this license. Next to investment management and investment advisory and the agency. These two licenses basically for the hedge fund and the fund managers license. And sometimes some robo-advisory startups acquire this license. Next one is a crypto assets and exchange. If you do the buy and sell, exchange, and the management means the custody of the crypto asset, and you need license. We have 31 license holder in Japan, such as from the overseas company, the Coinbase, and also domestic one is a CoinCheck, Bitflyer. And next one is a fund transfer. If you do the remittance of the 1 million yen or less, then you need this license. We have 80 companies have this license, and for example, like Revolut or Payoneer or Western Union, those remittance company has this license. Next one is the issuance of the prepaid payment instrument. If you issue a prepaid card, you need this license. At the same time, like some of the gaming company has this license. For example, like a Pokemon Go or Google Payment, iTunes, and Epic Game, those company, since like they need the customer to deposit some of the cash first and let them play the game. So that's why like they need this license. Next one is the insurance license. We have in total is the nearly 200 license holder in Japan, and recently like there is some startups like who started the mini insurance, so like pet insurance or bicycle insurance. These are quite numbers of the application we receive these days. And right hand side top is the money lending license, and we have the nearly 300 like the company as licensed through the central government. But at the same time, like you can talk to the, you can apply for the license to the regional government as well. So some of the fintech actually acquire this license through the Tokyo Metro. Next one is the bank agency. And if you do the deposit of money lending on behalf of banks, you need this license. And nowadays, some of the neobank company considering to acquire this license, so such as the JL and ANN. And next one is an agent for the electronic settlement system. And if you do the connection between the bank account and the external services, then you need this license. And for example, we have the 96 companies, and then such as the Money Forward and the Free is the domestic fintech company has this license. And last one is financial services brokers. Actually, like, this just started like November 1st, and we still only have the two the license holder since like this just started. And this brokerage license is one-stop the license, which means like you can do the banking and securities insurance like a brokerage business by using this one license. Previously, you need the separate license, 3 types of license to handle like those activity. But however, like it's gonna solve an all-in-one. And especially the the crypto asset exchange, fund transfer, and issuance and prepaid payment instruction. Recently, we received a lot of like inquiries from the fintech companies. And I would like to introduce our fintech support desk. So we provide a one-stop service for the fintech-related consultation and mainly the legal clarification for individual cases. And then we try our best to answer to you in average 5 business days. So please drop an email to the fintech@fsago.jp, and then we will reply back to you. Right. And next page, please, page number 4. I'd like to explain a little bit about our International Financial Hub initiative. So we developed we tried to develop the Japanese market as international financial hub by attracting the financial and the fintech companies and highly skilled talents from overseas. And We promptly carry out the registration examination and supervision work in English. Especially the supervision part is we work on it, and then not 100% yet, but step by step, like we are making it perfect. And we also developed the immigration and the residence system and the living environment, like medical care and education, in cooperation with each ministry and agency. Next one is I'd like to introduce about the FinSum. FinSum is the one of international fintech event co-organized by FSA and Nikkei, and we held for 3 days in March 2021, 1 day for the FSA symposium. And we conducted advanced discussion in the various fields, such as the multi-stakeholder governance in decentralized finance system and AI, API, and cybersecurities. Next event will be held in March 2022, and so please join us online. As for the cybersecurities measure for the financial institutions, cyber measures in normal times focusing on the protection from the cyber attacks, and the cyber measure in contingency focusing on the instant response. Both are very important. And as shown in the slide, for the peacetime measures, it is fundamental for the financial institution to conduct a risk assessment for the cybersecurity after understanding their information asset. As for the contingency measure, the first step is to develop a contingency plan in case of an accident. However, the risk assessment and contingency plans are not enough for the cybersecurity measures. And the next task is to improve the effectiveness of the measure through the vulnerability assessment and the cyber exercise. If you have any question about the cybersecurity, I will connect you with our specialist. So please contact me first. Thank you for hearing today's session. And so FinTech support desk is always welcome with your inquiry. So please drop an email there. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation, Matsuzawa-san. Okay, now we would like to move on to the final presentation. The final presentation is from Ms. Kiewai, Director of Business Development and Bureau of Japan External Trade Organization in Singapore. This is about the general legal procedures when starting business in Japan. Ms. Kiewai, could you please start your presentation?
Hello, everyone. I am Kiewai from JETRO, Singapore. So today it's to explain to you about general legal procedures when starting business in Japan. Before I start, I would like to explain a little about who we are. So JETRO, or Japan External Trade Organization, so is government-related organizations that work towards to promote the trade and investment between Japan and other countries. And we basically support Japanese companies going out of Japan as well as foreign companies going into Japan. So I'd like to move into the establishing an entity in Japan procedures. So when you first think about setting up in Japan, probably you have to first decide on the activities that you're going to do in Japan. So for example, if you're just looking at market research or coordinating with your current partners or clients in Japan currently, it might not require you to have a non-legal entity, but just not to have a legal entity, but a non-legal entity, which is called a representative office. But for such entity, basically, you're not supposed to have, you do not have a corporate bank account, or you're not able to have any local contracts or local recruitment in Japan. So if you are thinking to have a full-fledged activities happening in Japan, then you will have to consider for a legal entity, which there are 3 types of entity available in Japan for your choices, which is the branch, the JK or LLC, or the KK. And for such entity, basically, you will be able to have a corporate bank account, you will be able to sign local contracts as well as hire local candidates in Japan. So this is the overall flow of how you set up a legal entity in Japan. So basically, it's the legal procedures plus the tax notice or notification to the relevant ministry. Of course, for people who are sending staff from overseas, then you will have to also apply for working visas for your staff. And of course, you have to look for permanent address, office for the company, and then followed by when you hire people, you need to clear all the social insurance and the HR related issues in Japan. The comparison of the different entity in Japan. So as I mentioned, that the rep office is a non-legal entity. So basically, it's really just for a short-term or market research or just a basic contact point to have in Japan. But if you are looking for a branch for a legal entity, so basically all activities are allowed for either of the entity. The main difference is that a branch is a foreign entity in Japan. So this is attached to a foreign HQ in overseas, whereas the LLC, GK, and the KK are considered as a local corporation in Japan. So for all three legal entity, you are required to register to the legal bureau in Japan, and there is certain capital limit that is required in Japan, but it's basically a 1 yen or more for GK or KK. For branch, since it's attached to a foreign HQ, it's not really required. And all three are able to allow you to have a corporate bank account, as I mentioned. As for the local representative requirement, in Japan, basically, it's possible to have 100% ownership of the company. It's just that you will need to have a representative for the legal entity. So for the LLC or the KK, it's possible to have this person who is currently not residing in Japan, which means that a foreigner who still do not hold a working visa in Japan. But whereas for a branch, a Japan branch, you will require a locally residing branch representative. So this can be a person, foreigner as well, but he has to hold a working visa in Japan. And for the time requirement for the establishment, it takes about, as you see on the screen, the KK will take a bit longer because it's a shareholding company where there are more paperwork to be done. And the cost of the registration is of course, the branch will be the lowest, whereas for KK will be a bit higher. So there are also additional courses, which is a fixed course that is called the legal registration cost to the ministry in Japan. So where the KK will be among the highest. When it comes to the tax implication in Japan, the main difference between the three entities is that the branch, because it's a foreign entity, so only the domestic source income will be taxed in Japan. Whereas for GK and KK, because it's considered as a local entity in Japan, it's a global source income, which means all transactions connected to this entity will be taxed regardless whether it happens in Japan or outside Japan. And so this is a basic overall in how the comparison and the difference in the three entity in available in Japan. To talk a bit more in details is that since 2019 August, there is a new prior notification required for certain businesses under the Foreign Exchange and the Foreign Trade Act. So for certain companies that are dealing with in certain sectors that is stated here on the screen, of course, there's lots more. And even if you are under this category, it might not mean that you definitely have to do so. So you have to really to seek for the professional advice for this. And if you are required to do so, you will have to submit the documents before your establishment within 6 months. And also, only after receiving the approval, 30 days later, you are able to start your establishment in Japan. So just some simple explanation on the tax burden in Japan. So this is the corporate tax structure in Japan, and this is using the example of Tokyo. So meaning that there's certain changing in the inhabitant tax and the enterprise tax in different prefectures and cities, but it's a very, very minimum percentage. And something that is a bit different in most of the country, this is a particular tax that is placed upon the paid-in capital of the company. So meaning that even if you do not have a profit or revenue earned of that year, there's still a minimum tax amount that you have to pay annually. So, and basically, if you're for most of the startup companies or the smaller SME companies, the minimum is about 70,000 yen per year. And before I end my introduction, my explanation, so I'd like to introduce you to a little of our supporting services that could help you to venture into Japan. So as I mentioned, that JETRO is supporting both Japanese companies going out from Japan as well as the foreign companies going in. There are three main initiatives that we are currently doing. So these are the three main initiatives, and the first one is really in facilitating the global innovation, open innovation activities happening both in Japan and outside Japan. So we are supporting a lot of Japanese large corporates who are looking for open innovation opportunities. So we try to create opportunities and collaboration platforms for them between the foreign tech companies in overseas to for them to network, and also for them to understand what are the potential or solutions that's available in overseas that they might be able to use it for their own problem statement that's happening both in Japan and outside Japan. Some of the programs that you've seen here are not main organized by JETRO, but we are supporting member of them where we introduce or we nominate the companies that are suitable to join in, where they will be given more business opportunities in Japan with the Japanese companies. The Invest Japan promotion initiative is really for the companies that have already ideas in setting up and establish their entity in Japan. So the first portion for most of the younger companies who still are not really able to know more about Japan. So we do have services that provide customized market reports for the companies that we are supporting, as well as we do have a pool of the industry-specific advisors that could support them with more knowledge about certain sector in Japan. And also we have free consultation services through the professionals that we engage, like lawyers, HR consultants, the tax consultants that could answer more detailed information for the companies that they might have for the incorporation in Japan. Last but not least, when they are established in Japan, we will also be providing some free services to help them to PR their company information to the media in Japan. And we do have also an incubation center, what we call as IBSC, where we are providing 50 working days without any charges for the company, temporary use in the 6 major cities that you see on the screen. And besides the 6 major center, IBSC, we do have offices covering all these prefectures and cities, where we'll be providing additional information about either the business clusters or the acceleration programs or incentive programs provided by the individual prefectures and city governments, or the private companies in that particular area, to create more business opportunities and collaborations for the companies that we're supporting. So this is a very general overall on what we are providing, and also the legal procedures in Japan. If you have more interest to know more, we really look forward to hear from you, and please contact us anytime, either through email or get a link to our linking on Facebook. With this, I would like to end my presentation for today. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kiewai. Thank you for joining today's session. Now the old presentation ends up. So now we would like to move on the live Q&A session via special chat room. But before moving to the special chat room, I would like to say thank you to all of you to join today. And we are very looking forward to meeting you in Japan and working with you together in near future. Thank you very much.